we going?
Welcome to Emotionships.
Oh, no. No, that was so low energy. Everybody's tuned out. Start
Where
over.
we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. I am your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my chummy co-host,
Chummy?
Mallory.
What?
Mallory.
Can we start over?
No, there's no starting over. You know, one thing that people don't realize, or some people seem surprised about when I tell them this, we don't edit this thing. We don't like.
People think we edit it?
Yeah, I mean that's a normal.
Really? I feel we sound very unedited.
If there is any editing whatsoever, Gelman does not tell us.
Oh, are you editing us?
But what I'm talking about is there are a lot of.
Don't silence me, Gelman.
There are a lot of podcasters out there that record a lot of information and then only keep the best of it.
Yeah,
you get everything,
you
ladies
get the
and
crap.
gentlemen. You get everything.
You're welcome.
Mal, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Sporting a plethora, a variety of flowers on your shirt today. Mm-hmm. Very springish.
I'm trying because there was a big old snowstorm last night.
There was a big old snowstorm. My kids are so excited. They got school off.
Yeah, you know what makes me mad about that?
What?
So I grew up outside Chicago. We never had snow days. Never. Really? I feel like the school system's getting soft.
Yeah. Everybody's getting soft, let's be honest.
That's true. We never had snow days. But the thing that sucks is if you have to make it up in May or June. So
yeah. So they're little kids.
Yeah, so there.
Don't get too happy.
The thing I love about the stage of life my kids are in is daycares are like, they don't close.
No, of course not.
They're pretty bad A.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. I mean, they rely upon those days being open to get paid.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't ever underestimate a person's need to get paid.
True.
Just coming through Super Bowl Sunday. Did your team win? Who were you rooting for?
I was rooting for the Chiefs. I have family in Kansas City.
Oh.
So we tend to root for them, the Royals or the Chiefs.
Yeah, I was going to say, hold on, they're not the Royals.
No, baseball.
Yeah, you got it right.
Ever heard of it?
You got it right.
Yeah, and I like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Tom Brady's fine. Obviously, he's very talented.
Everybody hates on... Why does everybody hate on Tom Brady?
You know what I was thinking about? I think it's probably how people felt about us, about the Bulls in the 90s. Sure. Like, it's tiring. Like, let's give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't hate him. I'm just like, I like rooting for the underdog.
Yeah. Did you see he came back? I don't know how in tune with the game you were, where he started jawing with, I think he was a linebacker from the Chiefs, either that or a safety. I do not remember his last name, but they got into a little bit of a...
Yes, and I think that guy then went on Twitter and said some things and then later deleted them.
Well, and Tom Brady reached out to him and apologized for jawing with him during the game. Nice.
I'm sure he's a very fine
He seems like a classy guy.
Yeah.
I do know that he takes his health seriously, that he is huge into like only putting things into his body that gives him energy.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, he's extending his career. He says,
it's working.
Yeah. He says that he has see, this is the thing, and we won't go.
What's the thing?
I say this all the time. If you have to wait until you feel a certain way to give yourself attention, like from an energy, like nutrition, health standpoint, it's often too late.
Well, how would it not be too late?
How would it not be too late?
Gelman, edit that question. How could it be anything but too late? If you're waiting, say it again. If you wait until, go ahead. What are you saying?
One of the reasons we started a holistic health boutique is because you don't have to wait until you feel really bad or you're really overweight in order to take your health seriously. And here's the sad thing about health. You don't know that you've lost it until you've lost it. And so way too often, someone has to get diagnosed with something or really feel bad before they start treating their health or taking their health seriously.
Right.
And like what I have said about Body Garage, you know, especially for entrepreneurs and those that are burning the candle at both ends, you know, your competence grows. So I don't know. I've been starting these businesses and doing a lot of different things for a long time now. And I'm getting smarter I mean, whether you make money or not, eventually you have to make money. But the whole thing is you're growing a competence, even more than a bottom line or profit or whatever. You're growing a competence. So you can get your competence to work for you in multiples if you have a lot of life toward the end of your life versus having, spent it all building your competence. And so like there's these two factors that you have to control. And often, it's not until we totally lose our mobility and have no strength left that we're like, oh, I should do something about my health.
Right.
And
it's like repair versus maintenance.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that right?
Preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it happens. It happens to so many people, especially in this country where we have been trained to delay, to pursue instant gratification and delay some of that preventative maintenance. But often people do not realize, they forget because it happens so slowly. They forget what it feels like to feel great. Mm-hmm. And just Tom Brady is an excellent example of someone who has been accused of being a fanatic when it comes to like primarily eating a vegetable diet, with protein additives through whatever shakes and stuff. But like the guy's extended, he took 20 years to get this competence. And now he has, he says that he has more strength and energy than he had 10 years ago. And he's throwing the long ball just as well as he was 10 years ago, if not better. And so you put that into a business situation, or even just like as a member of a family or a member of an organization. Unfortunately, we think, and some of it has changed because now we have access to more technology and information, that your life is kind of like you go up this hill, you get to the top of the hill, and you go down the hill. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way anymore.
Right. Pay now or pay later.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can. I had this thought in the winter because the hot tub is hot and it's cold outside.
This is a really deep thought. The hot tub is hot and it's cold outside in the winter.
Yeah.
Go ahead and enlighten us.
It loses water really. It loses water quickly because it evaporates with it being colder outside and what have you. And I was thinking,
you should be poor like me and just take baths in the bathtub.
Yeah, I could do that.
I mean, it doesn't evaporate.
It would be easier.
Less maintenance.
It would be easier to read, but yes, it's often it's a family thing and it's a way to wake up. But nevertheless, I had this thought that every once in a while, like twice during the winter, I have to get the hose out, hook it up to the back of the house, drag it around 30 yards and fill the hot tub. And I had this thought this morning, like I could literally take a small bucket, not even a big one like you find at Lowe's or Home Depot, but just a small bucket, and put one bucket in every time I get in there, and it would do the job. Versus having to just like let it get completely low to a point where it requires so much work to go get that hose out, drag it around, roll it back up.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. That sounds really laborious.
Thank you, John.
However,
Gelman.
I think it's nice to just like completely empty it every once in a while. Get some fresh water in there, which what?
Go on.
I imagine, I don't know. I don't have a hot tub, so I'm not exactly sure, but I'm envisioning that that's probably the case. And so I just did that cleanse,
Yeah.
Which was really fun. But I didn't know, here's my takeaway. I didn't know I thought I felt great.
Sure.
And then I did this cleanse and eliminated some things from my diet, like caffeine and alcohol. And I was sleeping like a champion.
Yeah.
And I thought already, like I take pretty good care of myself. And then I did the cleanse, and it's like, it's really true that you don't know that you don't always know that you feel bad until you feel good.
Sure. Yeah.
And so let me tie it back into the hot tub because I lost my train of thought, but now I'm back. I'm back on track. Sometimes it's good to just like completely do a reset.
For sure. No doubt about it. And I do that twice, maybe 3 times a year, but just
the cleanse or the hot tub?
No, Yeah. I don't do the cleanse 2 to 3 times a year, maybe once, maybe twice.
I was going to call you out on it if that's what you were talking about.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Maybe once or twice. But the point is, yeah, of course, you do need those big resets where you take an extended period of time and just clean everything out. But when it comes to maintenance, the point of like putting a small bucket of water in versus waiting until it gets so low that you have to do it, because often when it gets so low that you have to do it, it's the worst time in the world. And I think the same is true with our health. You know, often it's some sort of diagnosis that forces people to change their habits. And by that time, it can be too late. Mm-hmm. And so the point is, you know, you want to maintain your health and vitality, because the longer you can extend the vitality of your life in your days, the greater your competence is going to serve you. And so if you can be 70 years old and your telomeres, like the strands of your cells that measure your real life, like how much energy you have, because we say it all the time that you have a calendar age, but then you also have a biological age. If you can be 70 with your calendar age and 50 with your biological age, you're going up against 50-year-olds that have 50 years of experience, whereas you have an extra 20 years of experience, mm-hmm. right? 40% mm-hmm. more experience. And it's just, I see that, and it's why I try to take care of myself and, you know, invest in my energy. Dave Asprey, I think I sent it to you, recently said, "You're not your age, you are your energy." Mm-hmm. And we see this in poverty alleviation work all the time. That, you know, there are 30-year-olds that have been in a rapid state of aging due to fight or flight, and their biological age is 65 years old. Mm-hmm. They're just absolutely worn out because of their inability to take care of themselves. The reason why I am an advocate for a creative way to provide health care for all is because it affects everyone. So when you have a large segment of the population that are 30 years old, moving and behaving and interacting and responding like they're 65 years old, that affects everyone.
For sure.
Everyone is connected. I had that thought this morning. I came downtown and I get off 2nd Street, off 75, which takes you in front of the jail and a number of different like government agencies. And I saw a number of I know the different buildings, social workers going in to work. And a few of them were smoking. Almost all of them were overweight. And I had this thought, you know, whether it's corrections or what have you, any social service, to include our teachers. If we were wise, we would find a way to pay them more and to take care of them, because they are the people that are taking care of everyone else.
For sure.
And when you know, hopefully this self-corrects, and we're seeing a little bit of it, but when you pay your entertainers and your athletes 5, 10, 15, 20 times more than you pay your educators and your social service workers, it is only a matter of time before that civilization or that government fails, because you're not taking care of those that are at the bottom.
I could not agree with you more, for once.
Wow. Episode 52.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Maybe we need to wrap it up right there. But I mean,
it's so true. Oh my goodness. The people that are taking care of other people. I mean, I have 2 children that are in daycare most of the day. When I put them to bed, it's like the temptation is like, I need a glass of wine.
Sure.
Like I need to, and it's not good for me. That's what keeps me from sleeping well, blah, blah, blah. But I need a glass of wine. I need chocolate. I need, you know,
Sure.
and that's after like a couple of hours of caring for 2 children that I birthed.
Yeah.
Being in an environment 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week where you are caring for people who are wildly unhealthy, for the most part, unhealthy.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, you're fighting a very difficult battle to then go to be caring for yourself.
When I went to jail, which I don't know what episode that is.
It was early on.
Yeah. One of the things that really, that I remember is just the health of those that were taking care of those that are supposed to be unhealthy. Right. And it's just, again, we've said it many times, we have been raised or conditioned to view people that have made certain mistakes or commit certain acts as people that are just bad. Mm-hmm. And it all gets wrapped up and summarized under the idea of, well, they're just a bad person. Mm-hmm. And what in allowing that, we fail or we create a scenario where people can't be restored or redeemed. And what you're not acknowledging is there are many parts to a person, and a person's attitude and how they think, their mindset, all of those things are a reflection of the energy they have, which is a reflection of the energy that they were raised in and around. And so it's not uncommon, if you're in the middle class or, even the upper class, to look at someone that is or has made a poor decision, like a prostitute or someone that is selling drugs for a living, and be like, oh, well, they're just a bad person. And what you don't see is they are second, third, fourth, or fifth generation poverty. And those are the things, because they did not have access to good education or a healthy living environment, or they were sexually abused. There's a whole host of things. Or maybe they were just raised on food that came from, the mini mart at their local gas station that had absolutely no nutrition in it whatsoever. And therefore their endocrine system that controls their willpower, their happiness, their willingness to share and be kind to others was offline because of Mountain Dew and Doritos. And that led to decisions and interactions with others that led to even poorer relational interaction, which made it that much more difficult. And then they end up doing things just to survive. Mm-hmm. So, you've done the poverty simulation with Think Tank here out of Springfield, Ohio. They do a lot of social work and poverty alleviation work where they put you in a situation where they let you live in poverty for a day. And almost every person that does that comes out of that situation saying, like, yeah, of course, I would steal too if I were in this situation.
For sure.
I would lie too if I were in this situation. And, it is so naive and even disgusting for anyone to think that someone would sell their body or give someone else a blowjob for $5 or $10 because they want to. Yeah. I think the ignorance of the person that would live in a way that says that person wanted to do that, or that person just does that because they're bad, is more disgusting than the act that person did. Right. Your ignorance, not their act, is what's more disgusting. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I told you I've been like, I used to live in Seattle, and I've been like kind of homesick for Seattle lately, and so I've been listening to a lot of Macklemore because he is a Seattleite, and when I lived there was when one of his albums came out, and so I listened to a lot of it. So it's a strong emotionship for me. When I hear him, I think about Seattle. Anyways, one of the lines in his songs is America the brave still fears what we don't know. Yeah. And it's like so powerful and true that if there is a lack of understanding, it's just like rooted in fear. Yeah. And people, in order to get to a place where they feel comfortable, they create stories in their heads, narratives in their head. I think a lot of us are unaware of a lot of the narratives that we create, but you see someone standing on the corner begging for money, and there's all of a sudden like, well, they're just going to use that to take drugs or whatever. There's all of a sudden a narrative that we tell ourselves because it's scary to have to consider that maybe they are living in extreme poverty and they're just trying to feed their kid. Yeah. Like that's a very hard thing to wrestle with. And so we tell ourselves a different story to make ourselves feel better.
Oh, 100%. And my thing is being someone that does give cash to people that are standing on the sidewalk or ask for it. Why do you care if they, I was with a director of a community center that's spiritually based. And we got on this topic, and he was talking about why he doesn't give cash. And I told him why I do. And he said, well, they'll go and buy alcohol with it. And this gentleman is significantly overweight. And I just asked him point blank, I said, what do you use to medicate yourself after a hard day? And he's not living underneath a bridge trying to stay warm on 15-degree or 5-degree evenings. Mm-hmm. Like, clearly, you're medicating yourself with food. Mm-hmm. Why do you have a problem that they're going to go and try to deal with their pain, which is what it is, with alcohol? Yeah. And if
what did he say? He
didn't say anything.
Oh.
You could tell it stunned him. And I just made the comment to kind of get him out of it. I just said that, it is a pain problem for these people, and they're trying to get out of their pain for a few minutes. And
aren't we all?
Sure. And then I asked him a question, just like, I think I made it a statement. If we say you shouldn't give them $5 or whatever it is, $20, because they'll harm themselves, you're acting as if you care about them. That's what that comment is wrapped up in. But if you care about them, you would think that would lead you to think a little deeper into what are they actually trying to do here that would motivate such behavior. And again, I've done that poverty simulation multiple times, and I know what it feels like to go without or to not have the resources to be able to do something. It's like, I don't think that's the best solution, but at the same time, just like everybody else, they're trying to medicate themselves to get through another day and wake up another morning.
Sure. Well, and there's so much, as you were referring to, there's so much beneath the surface that even our own self can be unaware of, like our endocrine system. And, I got blood drawn earlier in the fall or something. And I had no idea that my levels were so off.
Sure.
And I'm like a relatively healthy person. And there were some alarming things that was just in a state of fight or flight and didn't even know it.
For sure.
And so I think there's a lot of us who, whether we're living in poverty or not, that there's just a lot going on.
Well, yeah. And that it's a great point that your hormones are the equivalent of like power lines or phone lines, when phone lines used to be a thing. Now it's more cell towers, but you could even use the same illustration that your hormones are communicators. That they move energy from one place in the body to another place, or certain thoughts create certain hormones, bursts of energy to motivate certain behaviors. And so, when a dog jumps a fence, when you're out on your jog and it scares you half to death, that produces a certain kind of hormone that specifically goes to your extremities, your legs and your arms, to either fight the dog off or to run like hell. Mm-hmm. And so when your hormones get thrown off because you have been in a state of fight or flight for an extended period of time, or your gut health is all messed up because of the food you have been putting in it. So thoughts trigger a craving for bursts of energy through food. And when you satisfy those cravings through cheap food, because you can get like a burst of glucose and glycogen through Mountain Dew or caffeine or, something salty like we said earlier, Doritos. Eventually, your gut is so unhealthy that it can't produce healthy hormones. And so those hormones are compromised and cannot send the right signals, which just puts you into this cycle of being off because your body can't communicate with itself. And so, you take a person like yourself that, whether it's through young children or stress at work, whatever it is, and your hormones get off because you're stressed, you're in this fight or flight, it's very hard to do anything. The blood goes from the front of your brain where there's the conscious thought and you work out of a database of reasoning to the back of your mind where you're very reactionary. Mm-hmm. And so we see often in poverty or in lower income neighborhoods, someone swings at a police officer, or the police officer provokes that person and that person reacts, it's because they have been in fight or flight their whole life, and the blood is in the back of their brain, which God created us that way so that if we were being chased, we could think quickly, like, I'm going to jump up in this tree, like I'm going to, whatever it is. And so it's just about taking into consideration everything that's going on and realize that some people are set up to make poor decisions because they are trapped in a state of fight or flight because their hormones are off. And, for the person that is out there, we just entered February, and there's a lot of people still working on their New Year's resolutions to try to be a fitter, stronger version of themselves with energy. You can't do it when you're in fight or flight. For all the people that try to lose weight and try to get to where they're supposed to be, what you need to understand is if you have not learned to live, by faith, which is things are going to work out for me, versus fear, things are not going to work out for me, you will always be in a state of fight or flight, and your body will not listen to you because it thinks that you're trapped up in a tree. And what happens, at least with your immune system, which, oh, by the way, 80% of it is in your gut where all those hormones are made, your immune system starts turning off because it wants to keep you alive. So, on my Apple Watch, sometimes when I'm working out, I will have forgotten to charge it the night before. And it will say, hey, we're shutting things down and going into power saving mode because the battery's too low. That literally is exactly what your body does when you are in fight or flight. It kicks off your body's ability to have the energy it needs to make anything new because all it wants to do is extend your life, and it does that by saving power and turning things off.
Okay, so can you give an example? I think this fight or flight is particularly relevant like culturally right now in the middle of this pandemic. Like
Sure.
We're coming on a year now. And I remember like the first few months, the daycare did eventually close. They don't always stay open. And so I was home with my girls, and I've never experienced myself like I did when I was home with like in quarantine with my young kids.
Yeah.
I scared myself sometimes because I was just like at my wit's end. And so I think for many reasons, a lot of people have maybe bumped into fight or flight mode in the midst of what's happening right now. Can you give some examples of what it's like? Can you say more about fight or flight? Like practically speaking, what might a person like do or experience?
That is in fight or flight?
Yeah.
I mean, to be irritable is an indication of fight or flight. Sleeplessness is an indication of fight or flight. Craving carbs and different sweets or snacks is an indication of fight or flight. Not being able to focus because the blood is in the back of the brain. Like you're always jumping from one thought to the next, as you would, right? Like if you got chased into an abandoned building and you're looking around for an exit, like you're just looking everywhere for the solution, because when you are in a state of fight or flight, like it's always to the next thing. There's always something wrong type of thing. So a lack of contentment, a lack of gratefulness, right? Just not manufactured gratefulness. And sometimes you have to do that to break a pattern, but just not appreciating what you have, can be a sign. Gaining weight and not being able to get rid of your weight is a sign of fight or flight. Those are all things that come from biologically just being trapped in a state of survival. Mm-hmm. And so, it's rest and repair, or it's fight or flight.
Well, I feel like you just described like 99.9% of people.
Yeah, because we've become so conditioned to it.
But it's helpful because when I think of fight or flight, like the picture of a person in that state in my head is like very frazzled and like It's very obvious. And I don't think it's always very obvious. It wasn't for me until I had blood work done and I was like, oh my gosh, I am not well.
Yeah.
So you could appear to be like very grounded and healthy.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to behaviors that are proactive versus reactive. If I had to say, like, in total, how should I view my life? I would start looking for qualities or actions that are proactive versus reactive? Are you taking steps to like be ahead of yourself and make decisions and ask your body to catch up with you? Or is your body your boss and you're reacting to everything that's happening? Eventually you wake up and hopefully it's not in your 70s or 80s to figure out that 98% of what you feared never happened. But most people, you know, if you were to journal your thoughts or your levels of optimism, you know, this is something that you can do. Just create a note on your phone and each day, you know, put the date and then put a percentage at the beginning of the day, like 2 numbers, the percentage at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day as to where 1 through 100 you think your level of optimism is. And you know, if you're honest with yourself, which don't show anybody the journal, just do it for yourself so you can be honest. Most of us, too many of us, I won't say most of us, too many of us feel more pessimistic than optimistic. It's probably a pretty good sign that you're in fight or flight, that you don't know how or cannot enter into a state of rest or repair. And then the question becomes, who are you blaming it on, right? What's the story that you're telling yourself? Where's the excuse? And there's no good excuse. You know, we'll say that we've got a child with a health situation, and that's hard. But you still have to, you know, or we've got a parent, you know, that it's falling apart, or, you know, maybe the parent is now moved in because their health is too poor. You still have to put your mask on first, or else you just extend that same mentality or that same issue to another generation.
For sure. I'm reading a book right now, and this woman is talking about the divorce that she went through, and she's telling her friend, like, I can't do it. Like, this is wrecking me. And her friend, she has 3 kids, the woman going through the divorce, and the friend told her, like, they're watching you, right? Like, because she's telling her, like, this is so hard to put my kids through. Like, she knew she needed to get the divorce. This is so hard to put my kids through. And her friend said, like, they are looking to you for, like, how they should be going through this. Like, you're sort of like the grounding factor here. So if you are completely distraught, they're going to be distraught. If you are calm, and we say this, calm is contagious, then they're still going to be upset and have to go through the process, but they will at least feel like, she compared it to a flight attendant. So if you're on a flight and there's a lot of turbulence, we're all looking to the flight attendant because we can't see the pilot. So we want to see, is the flight attendant freaked out? Because if the flight attendant's freaked out, I'm going to be freaked out.
For sure. And I literally have done that before.
Yeah, same with me. And there have been times when the flight attendant looked really freaked out and I thought I was going to die. And I think what's important there is, like, the flight attendant still needs to be able to go through his or her process, but it has to be sort of contained, and there has to be a level of awareness of, when can I go through this? Like, when can I feel my feelings? How do I feel them? But for the most part, especially if you have kids, like, you're the flight attendant and they're looking to you to see how safe they are.
100%.
So
I think when it comes to fight or flight, it is important to start with acknowledging that there is not a good excuse to not be proactive with your life. Like, you have to find the excuse in the story that you're telling yourself, because that's all it is, and confront that story and start taking care of yourself. And, you know, we started off talking about Tom Brady and his commitment to himself. His commitment to himself has extended a period of time where his competence can shine and can pay him. So it's like, you work 20 years to get to a place where you have this competence. And that's about the right number for him, you know, playing football his whole life. It took him 20 to 25 years to get to a place where he had the chance to let his competence reward him. And so if you want to extend the window in which you can be rewarded for a heck of a lot of hard work over 2 to 3 decades, you have got to invest in yourself. And so it's not your parents' fault. It's not the impossible situation that you're in right now. You have got to get up out of bed, and you have got to be proactive with your life and start investing in yourself. Quit telling yourself a story. quit entertaining the lie and commit to being the best version of yourself. And it's possible. There is more information and instruction and guidance out there today than there has ever been before. You owe it to yourself to commit to being the best, strongest, most vibrant, loving version of yourself that you've ever been.
Yeah.
It's possible.
For sure. So would you say, so someone who's like, I think I might be in a state of fight or flight, is that where they begin? Like, can you work yourself out of it without, like, obviously supplements and stuff like that are helpful, but
Sure.
For someone that feels like they don't have access to that, can you work yourself out of it into a place of rest and repair by doing things like you're saying?
Sure. I for me, if I don't work out at some point in the day, I'm going to have a hard time sleeping. And it's this like give and take, this teeter-totter that works off of itself. And so if you're exhausted, right, which is primarily between your ears, you might have to make your body tired so that your body will get rest, which will give your mind rest. If your mind is keeping you up at night, the best way to put your mind in check is make your body so tired that your body makes your mind sleep. Mm-hmm. That's just one example. But there are basics out there, and a lot of it's going to start with the narrative, the story that you're telling yourself.
Okay, so how does somebody start to know the story that they're telling themselves? Like they might be so deep into it that how do you start like unraveling it?
Well, I think it starts with some sort of assessment, self-assessment, where you take time in the morning to just say, am I who I want to be? Am I happy with my life? Is this how I envision things? What are, the things that are important to me and do I have them? What are the 3 to 5 things that I want or that I think would make me happy? And do I have them? And if I don't, what have I done to go in that direction? Mm-hmm. To me, when we talk about balancing our hormones, study after study confirms that 30 minutes of cardio each day is as good as any antidepressant out there. Being on an antidepressant, and I'm not telling you to go off of it. I think they're necessary for a time period. I know you shouldn't be on them your whole life, but it's like commit to cardio. For me in leading varying businesses, which means I have a lot of different relationships out there, there are a lot of things that I cannot control. There are things that I can control, and as we were saying this past week about, being an entrepreneur, you can't always control your assets, what's coming in, but you can control your liabilities. Mm-hmm. And so when I am in a situation where I am waiting, for things to fall into place, I can't control that. I can't control how many people come back into the restaurant and how fast the public starts eating out again. Mm-hmm. But I can control whether or not I get out there and run 2, 3, 4, or 5 miles today. Those are things I can control. Yeah. And so, everything tends to start with awareness. And maybe it's just about keeping a journal that checks in at the beginning of the day and at the end of the night that does a little bit of an evaluation as to my demeanor and my outlook or like my disposition on life. And it's like your kids are going to be miserable, as you said with the flight attendant. Your kids are going to be miserable if you're miserable. For sure. Your kids are going to find the problem and the mistake in everything if you're finding the problem and the mistake in everything. Mm-hmm. What people don't realize is that life is hard, and it needs to be hard if you're going to shine and become who you need to become. So quit complaining about things being hard, because you're going to wake up one day and you will have spent 90% of your life waiting for it to get easy, when the truth of the matter is it being hard is exactly what needed to be in order for you to become who you wanted to become the whole time.
Right. And whenever your version of hard becomes easy, there's going to be a new version of
100%.
Hard. Nobody's life is easy.
100%. And so, my son said yesterday, I picked him up from school, and he said, band is horrible. And I said, horrible is what you need. And he said, well, because of COVID, they're not letting us play inside. We've got to go outside on the playground or on the basketball court, and we spread out, and that's where we're playing our instruments. And he was talking about how cold it was, and it's not an ideal situation, but it just created an opportunity where I could say to him, like, You need hard. You need miserable. That's what shows you you're beautiful. That's what shows you you're strong. That's what shows you you're a champion. That's what shows you you're an overcomer. So quit wishing away the backdrop that will make you feel good about yourself and actually make you believe that you can accomplish something in life. It's resistance that gives us the opportunity, to believe in ourselves.
Right. I'm sure that's exactly the response that he was wanting from you.
The funny thing about it is he, it was hard for him to take it first, but then it was like, yeah, I get that. And so I have found, especially with young people, if you just help them understand that, like if you're going to do squats or a bench press, it's weight that makes your muscle bigger. So if you want to look good and feel better, then you need resistance.
For sure.
And I think it's just when we get into a cycle of feeling heavy versus doing heavy that we feel defeated over time. There's a huge difference between you feeling heavy and doing heavy. The best way to get out of feeling heavy is do heavy, right? Like do heavy, go run and make it hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. Go do the hard thing, have a hard conversation. If you will do heavy, you won't feel heavy. You'll actually feel light.
Yeah, you have a chance to work it out. Darren and I often get into this like conversation about who he calls himself an optimist.
Sure.
And if I say something that he doesn't think is optimistic, he'll call me a pessimist. And then I land in the middle and say I'm a realist.
Sure.
And the reason I bring this up is because I think there are people who there is an outlook people have on life, right? That they think, I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just being like
real. Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like how your personality type, whether it's real or what you tell yourself, plays into all of this.
Yeah, I think they're excuses. 90% of the time it's an excuse. A friend of mine just gave me a book that he helped create and edit, and it was about the Enneagram.
Yeah,
and he's dealing with a doctor. I think it's a neurologist, but he's dealing with a doctor that basically said, all of the numbers are in you, and it's at certain phases.
All of the Enneagram numbers.
Yeah, all of the Enneagram numbers are in you, and it depends on the phase of life and what you're up against as to what number is going to shine. Like your brain is wired in a way that you have all of those characteristics and traits. And so whether it's the Enneagram or love language or communication style with the DISC test, like at the end of the day, there are certain strengths that are easier for you than others. But, the one in the Christian world that drives me absolutely crazy is someone will say, well, I'm a perceiver. I just really see black and white. To which my response is, yeah, you're a miserable person and no one wants to be around you, perceiver.
Right.
Because though you see black and white, it tends to be the black that you always see and talk about, and you wear it everywhere you go, and no one wants to be around you unless they have to. Right. And so the truth of the matter is, I don't care.
Let's both say who we're thinking of at the same time.
1, 2, 3.
Go ahead. Keep going.
But I don't care what you are. As long as you know what you are, take that into consideration when you get your feet out there on the pavement and grind it out and make your flesh and your mind do what you want it to do versus what it tells you can do.
Well, yeah, the thing that gets me about, I like the Enneagram a lot, and I think it's very helpful until you start using it as an excuse. Like, sure. I'm a 2, so I'm not going to put myself first, or I'm not going to think about myself and my own health because I'm a 2, or I'm a 9, so I don't have to have a hard conversation because that's not what 9s do. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you can take the number that you are and like use it to challenge yourself. Like do something that a 9 or a 2 or a 5 wouldn't do.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And let yourself expand.
I don't know. I think it was last episode or a couple episodes ago, I told about the Saturday night where we went out to dinner, and that was usually during my preparation time for speaking on Sunday.
Oh, yes. And
here I was like,
go again. You went for a run and you did a hospital visit. Yes, we know. You're very impressive.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell the whole thing again for those that might have missed that episode?
No, but thank you for remembering all the details. That's the point. Like at some point in time, if you want to take on and think a different way, you have got to force yourself to do things that your mind says you can't do.
Right.
And so, when we talk about like gratitude being a mentality or thankfulness being a mentality that energetically draws more things to you to be thankful for, I'll go out and do that crazy stuff and literally have people tell me I'm crazy because I'm breaking barriers. I'm getting past things that I've been held by in the past that say, you can't do this. You can't receive this. And so take into consideration the uniqueness of you with all of the different things that make you different than everybody else. But at the end of the day, you have to do the hard work to get rid of the heavy lifting. It is amazing how your mentality is affected by your willingness to take on and confront hard things in your life. And if you don't have a regular habit of doing hard or doing heavy, you will always be heavy. Yeah. And when you're heavy, you can't do a lot of what you were designed to do.
True.
And so here's the thing. You're going to live your days whether you like it or not. And let's just say that you have, 30,000 days. That's your days for living. Like you're going to live them. And so you might as well live them with energy and vitality and excitement versus caving under the weight of everything that says the worst thing is going to happen. Hopefully it does, in the sense of it gives you an opportunity to become resilient and see that you survived and you're more than your hardships.
Yeah. Well, and it gives you a story to tell. How boring is life when you just continue to be miserable and heavy and cave? That's when I was going through particularly difficult seasons. I would be really excited because as a writer, it gave me something to write about.
For sure.
Like I have nothing to write about when life is easy.
For sure.
It's super boring. Nobody wants to read about that.
Well, because it's not just, this sets us up because you and I joke about, well, at least it can be podcast material, right? Or it can be a blog post. Mm-hmm. That's true. But even better than that, it's when you take on heavy and you survive heavy, you become lighter because you just realize, like, as Winston Churchill said, like, failure's never fatal. Mm-hmm. Or I think it was actually Lombardi, maybe that said that. But failure's not fatal. It just shows you that you're resilient and that you've got eternity in you and you can keep going. It's never too late to commit to being the best version of yourself. Mm-hmm. There's no good excuse because there are way too many people that had more difficult, impossible odds that they overcame to achieve things they never thought they could achieve, to show you that it's possible. This morning when I got here, the steps had not been shoveled, with this big snow. And so I'm doing it and...
Golly. We're going to call this episode, How Impressive is Charlie?
That's a good idea. I look across the street and the gentleman that lives in the tower across from us that is blind is walking the sidewalks to go get, I assume, his groceries because he walks down to the CVS on a regular basis on sidewalks that have not been shoveled and have several inches of snow on them. And it's like, you can always find someone that has it more difficult than you. And literally, he crosses the street and goes several blocks away to try to shop with his stick out in front of him, listening with his ears as to whether or not a car is coming and using his stick to figure out where the curb is, where the potholes are, and praying he does not fall down. I mean, and to say that he lives in poverty is barely fair to demonstrate what this person lives with every single day by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Financially, but he might be one of the lighter people in the world.
For sure.
And that's, there's a lot of financially wealthy people that are very impoverished.
Oh, and again, there's not an excuse. Like, figure out where you are, do some sort of assessment, maybe write out what stories you're telling yourself, mm-hmm. and then confront them. Why am I telling myself that? Why am I allowing that to be an excuse that keeps me from moving forward and confronting my inability to take on heavy to become lighter? Yeah. If you don't, if you're not intentional and you don't take on heavy, you will be heavy the rest of your life. And that's why they almost kill Navy SEALs during their training. That's why NFL and all of these other professional teams have combines that do 2-a-days and make it much harder than it will be in the game so that they can be light during the game. Mm-hmm. And so I think it just starts with some sort of like assessment and really just saying like, I want to, if I'm going to live my days, I want to be the strongest, most vibrant version of myself, and I deserve it. I'm alive and I deserve it. And if you need help, get help. You can reach out to us. There are a lot of resources in most communities out there. Reach out to someone and say, hey, can we just have a conversation so I have a little bit of accountability? Like, I want to be the strongest, most vibrant version of myself. And I think I might have been telling myself some lies because I've been this way for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Nobody's faulting you for where you're at. Certainly understandable.
Sure.
Let's figure out how to get you to move from where you're at to where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty countercultural. I mean, we all it's easy to be miserable.
Well, someone, I was working out of town and I was with someone, that I'm normally not with for an extended period of days. And they were talking about just the change and the transition and, in administration politically. And, they wanted to make it, a political thing. And I just said, in any given community or government, it is always easier to pull people down than it is lift people up. And if you study the history of civilization, you see that it's easier to go down than it is to go up. It's easier to be a less energetic, lethargic version of yourself than it is a more vibrant, strong version of yourself. And so nations usually fail, civilizations usually fail over a period of hundreds or thousands of years because it's very, very easy for there to be more people in any given country that are not taking care of themselves and are going downward versus going upward. And then it comes to your illustration of being in the pandemic with just your children. They drain you. And similar to what I said this morning about driving by the social service buildings, once you commit to taking care of other people, it's very easy for two people where one person is half dead to kill two people. Mm-hmm. So we have all of these people that, want to take care of others and they run into the fire and it drains them and pulls them down. And so self-care is such an important thing, and being very strategic with our educators and our social service workers and our healthcare professionals, because every time they go to help someone else, it costs them their energy. And so zoom out and view that nationally. It is always going to be easier for a nation or a civilization to fail because it's easier over time to go down than it is to go up. Mm-hmm. And that's just the story of mankind. So I'm all for helping others, but helping others starts with helping ourselves.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, like the power that each person has to make a difference in another person's life. So systemically, it's a pretty big task to start taking care of the people that take care of others in our country, right? But we all know a teacher or a social worker or a therapist or a nurse or something that we can do even a little thing to encourage and love on them.
For sure.
As we try and get the thing that, watching the Super Bowl, there's commercials that this kind of stuff sells, hitting at the heartstrings of people sells, but it's not actually in my opinion, these companies that are paying millions of dollars to put commercials out there don't really care. They're just trying to look like they care.
Yeah.
And there's such a disconnect there.
Well, Jeep did the commercial with Bruce Springsteen, and I like Bruce Springsteen. Mm-hmm. the reunited States of America. We're not reuniting anything.
There's no reuniting.
Not happening.
Have you
Until
looked around?
Holistically, we get our priorities straight.
Sure.
So you cannot reunite a group of people where we have allowed a healthcare industry and our food industry to serve people that are typically ignorant things that lead to more and more of their dependence upon a healthcare system that is dependent upon pharmaceutical drugs, where the answer is drugs and surgery. Like there is a lack of holistic integrity in our approach to government, which is supposed to be committed to every individual. And because of that, you can say all you want about the reunited States of America. Unfortunately, for all of you politicians and healthcare workers and faith-based like ministry people, it starts with more than an idea.
For sure.
Right? More than a thought. It can't remain at just a thought or an idea when it comes to government and how to reunite people. It's much deeper than that. I can't talk someone into getting off the street. It has to be, it might include thoughts and conversation, but if someone's biology is offline, it's really hard for them to have the motivation and willpower to make the change. Right. And so I'm for unity and I want those things, but there has to be holistic integrity involved. And maybe we just start saying that if you're going to sell cheap food, right, let's make it more expensive. So it costs you something out of your pocket, because that's going to cost us all something and again, you know, fruit and vegetables are some of the most expensive things out there. Why? Because they have more life in them. And life is expensive. Life is making the hard choice. Life is doing the heavy thing to avoid being heavy.
Right.
We just solved the world's problem.
Done. Wow. Easy.
Episode 52, Emotionships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason.
Ta-da.